It brings empowerment to parents, to youth, and communities.
There's a lot of tools that are introduced in the series, a lot of practical examples, and it really helps me understand, as a parent and as an administrator, ways to more effectively solve some of these problems and address these issues that are complex.
I feel that education is power, and that as we educate ourselves on maybe some of the issues that our society is facing, that we will raise better children, be better families, have better communities.
It's a great opportunity to learn valuable tools to communicate with the youth, to bridge the gap between what we think is going on and what maybe the empirical science and data shows us can help these youth.
I really think it will change lives, change families, and change communities.
Hello, and welcome to the second webinar in our 2024 Stand and Raise Parent Empowerment Speaker Series, with different subject matter experts featured each Tuesday this month. If you missed last week's incredible webinar with Andrea Davis from Better Screen Time, you should have received an email with a link to the recording. And if you didn't receive it, just reach out to us on our website, mediasafety.org or projectstand.org, and we can make sure that you get that. So this webinar is hosted by Project Stand, where our mission is to prevent exploitation by empowering youth, parents, and school communities to stand and thrive by using technology in healthy ways. My name is Brittany Homer, and I am co-founder and executive director of Project Stand. I get to be the mom of 4 amazing kids and your host today. We invite you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at projectstand.mediasafety, where you can stay updated on the latest resources that we have for students and parents and advocates. And you can also go to our website and subscribe to receive media safety tips and other updates, including what's happening with legislation that's related to keeping kids safe online. So last week at our webinar, I shared some exciting news about a groundbreaking, comprehensive, evidence-based set of media safety education programs that have been designed collaboratively for K through 12 students and their parents. It's called Safe Tech Solutions. And this initiative is a partnership between 4 nonprofits: White Ribbon Week, who brings the elementary program; Project Stand, we bring the middle school program; and Fight the New Drug, who brings the high school program; and Raise, who brings support for parents. So if you are interested in bringing safe tech solutions to your school district, reach out to us on our website, mediasafety.org, or you can go to the Safe Tech Solutions website, safetechsolutions.org, and we would love to tell you more about that. So for today's webinar, the Q&A feature is open for your comments and questions. And at the end of the presentation, I will pull questions from the Q&A, so you can submit them at any time throughout. And I am so thrilled to introduce you to my dear friend, colleague, and mentor, Deanna Lambson, today. She has made it her life's work to protect and empower children in their digital world. As a mother of 6, elementary teacher, and PTA volunteer for 33 years, Deanna promotes ongoing digital safety education to even the youngest students in a fun and age-appropriate way. She is the founder of the nonprofit White Ribbon Week and part of Safe Tech Solutions, of course, and has created step-by-step programs that anyone can organize in their own local elementary school. Deanna is also the author of Power Up for Families, a series of conversation workbooks that help families talk comfortably about media. And Deanna and her husband, Don, love being in the mountains and hanging out with their goats, ducks, and chickens. So today, Deanna is going to talk about empowering safe tech use through strengthening family relationships, because the single most important way to protect your child online is by strengthening your relationship with them. So she asks, how do you build trust with your little ones? How do you create a welcoming place for your teenager? What are the do's and don'ts of asking questions? Can you resolve conflicts without destroying your relationship? Deanna is going to answer these questions today and share simple, real-life ideas that you can implement for creating a stronger bond with your child. So Deanna, thank you so much for being here, and I will turn the time over to you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Can everybody hear me okay? Let me just share screen, and we'll make sure that that's working just right before, let's see. Okay. Hopefully that's working okay. Brittany, let me know if it's not. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this, Brittany. I was so inspired last year by listening to the program, and I actually had taken so many notes that I went back and just thought, wow, I just want to re-give what everybody did last year. It was so great, and I loved what Andrea Davis shared last week as well. And you know, there's been a mantra that I don't even know where I heard it, but I picked it up somewhere um, years ago, and it was every time you learn something new, your child is immediately safer. And I really held on to that, and I thought, okay, then I'm just going to keep learning. And kudos to all of you for being here today and for joining in this empowerment series. When you learn something new, your child is immediately safer. I feel a little bit like we're on Dora the Explorer, that I'm going to ask questions like, what's your favorite color? And then I'm going to say, I like that color too, because I can't hear your responses. But I wanted to ask you if you would actually respond to yourself with the questions that I'm going to ask you. So get a piece of paper or open up your notes app, and just, I'll give you a minute as I present to think about some of these questions, because I think sometimes your own words spoken back to you become your best inspiration. No one knows your family like you do. No one knows your children or your child like you do. And maybe the answers that you tell yourself will be exactly what you were hoping to hear today. So while you're getting your paper ready or things like that, I just want to tell you a quick little story. Over here on the left is my friend Shannon, my lifelong friend Shannon Nielsen. That's me down there at the bottom, super cute 5-year-olds. Quick story about these two 5-year-old friends. We were walking to school, walking to kindergarten. That was back in the days when you could allow your kids to walk to kindergarten alone, right? So we're walking to kindergarten. I get only about 2 houses away and realize I need to use the bathroom. So Shannon, being the ever supportive friend, says, well, let's just go knock on a door. So we go knock on the door of Hertha Lenroot. There you go. That was her name. So we go knock on her door, and she was so sweet. She invites us in. She had cookies. She let us drink out of little teacups. And of course, we spent a while there and didn't worry about when school was going to start. And when we came out, she had a beautiful bush of these snowball flowers in front of her house, and we were captivated. So we started picking these snowballs because, of course, we had to. And then we said, what are we going to do with all of them? And we decided we would go door to door and sell them. So to make a long story short, we spent the entire morning selling snowballs from Hertha Lenroot's front yard. And we decided to come home when we saw the kids coming out of school to go home for the day. So I walked home at the same time everybody else did, and my mom greeted me and said, how was school today? And I said, great. And I think my mom still doesn't know that my truancy began when I was 5 years old. But I wanted to ask you this question. Why do kids not talk to their parents? I think there's probably a bunch of answers, but the obvious one is they're worried they're going to get in trouble, right? Research shows that 71% of teens hide their online behavior from their parents. So there's a really awesome young man, his name's Smith Alley, who does a lot of presentations about helping kids avoid pornography. He had his own journey with that and felt like he wanted to share with others. And he shared that his mom did all the right things. She said, if you ever see anything that's dangerous, I want you to come and talk to me. His parents were supportive. And yet we think, okay, if that's the case, then why did he have this struggle with pornography? Why did this happen? And he said it was the socks. And you think, the socks? What do you mean? Well, she got so angry about his socks on the floor that he thought, if she's that upset about the socks, how can I possibly tell her about this? And that story is a huge wake-up call for me, because I realized that it's not just about how we respond to digital issues, to what they see online, but it's how we respond about everything, how we respond about the missing homework or losing their phone or whatever it might be, the messy room, right? So let me show you the being connected to your kids, having a close bond with your kids really makes a difference. Let's look at this one first. High attachment to parents. Look at all the good things that happen. Attention span increases, life satisfaction, self-esteem, open conversations, connection, grades go up. Okay, now let's look at low connection to parents. It's very clear that the studies say when kids have low attachment to parents, their time online goes up and their risky online activities go up. And of course, all these other things that you're seeing here, aggression, anxiety, some of which are a result of increased time online. It was interesting when I was reading this study, this is a 2018 study, it says that children who perceive that they have a poor relationship with their parents will often use screen time as a way to, it's a coping strategy, albeit not a great coping strategy, but it's a coping strategy where they can replace some of those negative emotions with immediate reward. So anyway, pretty telling. Brittany mentioned this earlier. The single greatest protective factor for your child online is their relationship with you. And I think we just need to sit back and go, wow, okay, of anything that I could learn, of any filter that I could get to put on my computer, my relationship with my child is going to be the most important thing. So of course it is worth spending some time on. So I know if you're like me, you feel like if you're a good parent, you are correcting your child when they're wrong, right? So this little triangle right here shows that really that correction and direction is much better followed if there's a strong foundation of connection. The problem is that studies show that 85% of energy in the home is spent on correction rather than connection. And of course, that's putting this triangle on its head. And the truth is that as much as we want correction to work, it doesn't work. It doesn't work without the connection. So, okay, how do you discipline? How do you get things done? How do you help your kids follow the rules and not ruin that relationship? I want to share a story. It's a very tender story of two of my boys, so Benji and Peter. And this is about the age they were when this experience happened. So Peter was not unfamiliar with the inside of the principal's office. And I was not unfamiliar with phone calls from the principal. So this particular event, I'm trying to remember which one, but this particular event, I think it was that he had written an inappropriate word in every single one of the yearbooks in his elementary school. So the principal gave me a call. Peter comes home and my husband and I have to think of what our consequence is going to be. This is unfamiliar territory for us. So I don't even know where we got this idea, but we decided that his consequence would be that he had to clean a certain area of the garage, and in order to be able to go with us on a family weekend trip to St. George in southern Utah. So at the time, it was not a good consequence. I was not thinking, it was not reasonable, it was not relevant, but anyway, that was his challenge, and he was pretty depressed about that. So he came home from school knowing that he had to do this task. And I had two friends at the time who gave me some parenting advice about this particular situation. So one of them said, you know what, you're way too hard on your kids. You are this is normal. This is just a normal kid thing. Don't worry about it. Don't punish him. It's not a big deal. Same day, another set of parents said to me, hey, you know what, Deanna, your kids walk all over you. Like, you need to get a backbone. You need to establish some rules, and your kids are just, you are a doormat. And I was so discouraged. I didn't know what to do. So we come home, Peter comes home from school. I decide that I'm going to go out and I'm going to help him accomplish this task in the garage because it actually was pretty overwhelming. When we go out to the garage, we find that Benji is out there working in the garage. This is going to make me emotional. He's out there working in the garage and he's half done. And we were both so shocked. As a matter of fact, Peter was so surprised that he didn't know how to respond. And he turned to me and he hugged me. And he just started to cry. And I just remember his tears falling on my shoes. And we just took a moment. None of us knew what to say. And during that moment, Benji said, Peter St. George would be no fun without you. It was a pretty powerful example for me because Benji wasn't trying to teach. He wasn't trying to punish. He wasn't trying to connect. He just was really communicating in the way that he knew how, that I care about you and I want to be near you. Like, imagine what that did for their relationship. It's a pretty powerful example, as you can tell. So I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, okay, I have blown it because I get mad at my kids all the time, and it's not just, rosy all the time at home. John Gottman said that parents who are really, really good at this stuff still only get it right about 30% of the time. Now, that's not a depressing statistic. That's a really good one because it makes me realize that even a small effort of mine to connect with my kids is going to make a big difference. So now some of you might be saying, maybe it's in the chat, some of you might be saying, okay, that's all fine and good for your family, but my kids are moody, they're stubborn, they're irritable, they don't want to follow the rules. I've got to have consequences. I have to say no, and they're mad at me, right? So we come to this very important question. Whoops, I think we're missing the question, so I'll tell you what it is. The question is, how do I enforce the rules or follow through with consequences without destroying our relationship? So I want you to think about that for a minute. What do you do when you need to enforce the rules and you don't want to ruin the relationship? Let me tell you a couple of things that I have learned, just a couple of things that have stuck with me. One is from working once a week, teaching once a week in a Montessori school. And one of the things that they taught us there is you don't have to control them. You only have to control yourself. So if I can keep myself calm, that is 90% of the issue. Keep myself calm. The other 3 points that you see right here are from a book that I got when we were when we had our very first child, and I was determined to be the best parent ever. And I bought a book that was called Raising Self-Reliant Children in a Self-Indulgent World. Still a great book, even though it was old. But it talked about how consequences need to be these 3 things. And I still remember them because they all started with an R: respectful, reasonable, and relevant. I don't think my cleaning the garage example is a very good example of any of those 3, but I've learned that since then. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about how do you follow through with consequences without destroying the relationship? I sent out this question on a text to a few of my friends that are wonderful parents and that I love and trust, and some that are therapists. And it was interesting because I got a response from a good friend who said, Deanna, your timing is hilarious because I just found out that my son lied to me about some math assignments that were supposed to be done. And now he's at a school dance and I'm so mad. I want to go get him out and bring him home. And she said, let me stop and think about this. And so she did. And she sent me this response, which I wanted to read to you. She says, I have found that responding to my children with anger does not do any good. It makes them afraid to come talk to me about anything in the future. And I've noticed they respond by hiding more and becoming dishonest to avoid a yelling mother. I think it helps if the rules and expectations are talked about together and the consequences are agreed upon with input from parent and child. If the rules are broken, take the time you need so that you can take anger out of the equation, then follow through with the agreed consequence. If a behavior happens that you haven't already discussed together, try not to use anger, but be clear that this is not acceptable, and then talk about it and agree on a punishment or discuss what the consequences should be if it happens again. At the end of these discussions, I like to end with telling them I love them and a hug. Isn't that great advice? I love that so much. It was interesting. She sent me a little follow-up the next morning, and she said that she had actually, when her son came home from the dance, she resisted the urge to talk to him right then. She waited until the next day waited till she could calm down, take him into another room and say, hey, can you pull up your grades for me? And he pulled them up, of course, and was a little sheepish to show her that his assignments had been missing. And instead of getting angry, she said, tell me what happened. And he explained to her that he didn't understand the assignments. And so he had tried to figure them out and had turned them in late and didn't get credit for them. They still followed through with the consequence, which was he lost use of the car. But she said it was very interesting that after this discussion, he didn't seem angry. As a matter of fact, she said he was pleasant throughout the day. He repeatedly came over and gave her hugs. She told him in that conversation how proud she was of him for the progress he had made up to that point, and that they were still going to have to follow through with the consequences because they had agreed on that together. But what a beautiful example. Another friend of mine, Nicole, who is a licensed clinical social worker, gives this advice. She says, you can have a great relationship, but there will be times when your child is not happy about something. It does not mean you don't have a good relationship. As a parent, we're going to do things that they may not like. We'll enforce the rules, we'll say no. But if they are consistently pushing back against your rules, perhaps it would be helpful to take a step back and understand why. Is it unfair? Is it too hard? Take them seriously. That can help preserve your relationship. You don't have to change the rules, but try to understand their perspective. It can help them feel valued, and it communicates that they matter to you even when you don't agree. So I love that example. So there are about 1,000,001 ways that we could talk about strengthening your relationship, but I just want to talk about two. The first one, how well do I listen? So somehow in my early mothering, I felt that if I were a good mother, I would be teaching. And if I were teaching, I would be talking. But I have since learned that it's the other way around, that sometimes my best teaching happens when they are talking and I am listening. So why is that? Well, we've learned, with research tells us that when children express things in their own words, it gives them a sense of control. I remember one of my sons saying to me, hey, Mom, thank you for letting me talk about it. If I can talk about it, I can deal with it. And I think it gives them that empowerment over whatever issue they're dealing with. Talking also breaks the problem into manageable pieces. They're able to tackle it piece by piece, and it builds resilience and coping skills as they do. There's an MRI study that I absolutely love. I think it's so fascinating, and it's called Putting Feelings into Words. And it is that they put, I guess they monitor what's going on in the brain of a child when they are talking, especially if they're talking during a stressful situation. So when the child is upset, the amygdala is activated. That's the fight or flight. It's the panic. It's the anxiety. It is the impulsive part of the brain, right? But when the child starts to talk, that active region moves to the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical part of the brain. It's the thinking part of the brain, the decision making and the problem solving. So this is really powerful for me because I realize that even if I don't know how to fix the problem, just letting them talk really helps them. I love this realization that I don't have to fix it. I don't have to fix it. They can come up with their own responses that really give them what they need if they just have an opportunity to visualize it. So one of the strategies I wanted to talk about that is really valuable to me is something that is called phone face down. So when my kids come home from school or they come into my office, I have to literally take my phone, put it face down, turn my body, face them, turn my chair, maybe even close the computer and listen to them. I have to resist the urge to multitask. Don't pick up my phone. Don't respond to anything. Don't even take a piece of lint off their sweater or fix their hair. Just listen. Just listen. And I think putting my phone face down helps me recognize that that I'm disengaging from that and I'm engaging with them. And it also tells them, hey, you're more important to me at this moment than whatever might be on this phone. I think we've all had that experience where you're talking to someone and they glance at their phone or they pick up their phone to check something. It immediately tells you they're not very interested in what I have to say. So I think that's a really important one. Let me share with you a strategy that you may not have seen before, but has been really helpful to me. This is something we called OARS, OARS, And, perhaps you have a child that likes to talk and they'll come in and just spontaneously want to talk to you. But maybe you don't. Maybe you have someone that's a little bit more reluctant. So the OARS stands for different questions or different ways that you can respond to them to help encourage those conversations. So the first one, O, is open-ended. Ask open-ended questions that are going to keep the conversation going, that cannot be answered with just one-word answers. So for example, what is something you did that was hard today? Or how do you feel about your conversation with Emily? Or what are some of the things that your friends are going through right now? The A stands for affirmation. Kids always love hearing something positive, and we don't do it enough. So this is just something that will highlight their strengths or something, some positive choices that they've made. So perhaps you'd say, wow, that took a lot of courage for you to share that. I'm so grateful that you did. Or writing that note to your friend was really thoughtful. Or I can tell you did your best on this project. The R stands for reflection. So this sounds kind of funny to us, but it really works just to reflect back to them exactly what they said. So if your child says, I'm just so mad that you won't give me an iPhone, then you might reply by saying, I can understand that it must be so frustrating to not know why you can't have an iPhone. Or if your child says, I'm just really tired and I don't feel like doing anything. I just want to stay in bed. You say, oh, okay, I can see you're really tired today. You probably just want to sleep all day. And I think it just tells them that they're heard. The S stands for summary. And that is after you've talked about some other things or they've shared with you, is to just take everything you've heard from them and summarize it into a message. For example, it sounds like you're stressed out about schoolwork and also being able to spend time with your friends and you don't know where you're going to get the energy. Am I right? So you notice that in all of those examples, you don't have to fix it. You're just keeping that conversation going. And I wanted to mention too that you don't do all of those in order. That would be a little overkill. But any one of those, you could pick, maybe in one situation, you just want to do affirmation. Maybe in another, you're just reflecting back. So let me ask a few questions then about listening. And I want you to just think about these. I'm not going to answer them, but I hope you answer them on your paper. So I'm going to put down 4 questions and just have you think for a minute. What is one thing you can do to listen rather than talk? How can you help your child feel that you care? What question could you ask to get him to open up? And how do you resist the urge to correct their thinking? Now, we've talked a little bit about listening. I want to jump to my second point is, what do I do when my child is upset? Now, many of us feel like the best time to strengthen our relationship is all those good times. It's birthday parties and it's family vacations and it's Christmas morning and all those things. But research shows that strong bonds are built with opportunities when your child is upset. It's almost counterintuitive. When our child is upset, our primitive brain says, we got to stop it. We've got to stop the crying. We've got to stop them from being upset. We've got to make things better. But this is actually our golden opportunity to build a really strong bond with your child. So let's look at an example here. We're going to call it a sprinkler of emotions. So this is from an app that I'm going to share with you a little bit later, but they talk about, let's pretend that you're walking in the park with your child and the sprinklers come on right in front of them and start soaking them. They might scream, they might run, they might cry. And in that moment, their primitive brain is activated and they just want to get away from it. They're surprised. And we're talking about this in an emotional sense as well, not just in sprinklers, of course, but any experience where that primitive brain is activated. They're in the sprinklers. They're upset. Something has happened that's upset them. What do you do? What do you not do? So right here, you can see, don't try to give advice or problem solve. Don't try to teach in this moment. They're not going to receive it. They're not going to hear it. And as a matter of fact, people who try to teach when the primitive brain is active, not only is it ineffective, but it's also harmful because they will actually be more likely to reject what you're telling them. I think that's really fascinating. So, what do you do in that moment when they're having that high anxiety, panic? Um, you recognize that this is a golden opportunity, you sympathize with them, and you just stay nearby. Now, you could try to explain to them, hey, look, they have to water the ground, or you're overreacting, but those things are not going to help. It is not the time. That might be true, but it's not the time, right? So this is phase one, when the primitive brain is active. Phase two is this cooling off period, and they say this can take anywhere between 2 minutes to 2 days. So if your child needs 24 hours to calm down, that's okay. You wait for that amount of time. The third phase is when they are more calm and rational, and their logical mind, their logical brain is starting to take over. So you're trying to help them navigate from the primitive brain to the logical brain. Now, when they get to this phase, a lot of parents make the mistake of saying, oh, they're feeling better. Okay, we don't need to discuss it. But this is the phase where the bonding really can happen, because you can sit with them. And this is the spot where you say, wow, that was really hard. I'm so proud of you for how you went through it. How are you feeling about it? What emotions are you feeling? And just help them process that. So let's just kind of review these. Okay, so phase one, you're going to show sympathy and be nearby. Phase two, just give them time, right? If they want to be with you, be with them. If they don't, it's okay, give them time. Phase three, this is where you listen and ask questions. Give advice sparingly, not a lot. You're not going to dump it on them, but if they want it and you sense that they're going to receive it, and help them label their feelings. Okay, I want to show you some really awesome examples, and I hope this works. This is an example of a teenage girl that has a tough situation. I'm going to skip to this next video. Her best friend did not invite her to a sleepover, and she's coming home and trying to share it with her dad. So let's just look at how he responds. Here we go.
Well, it's a bummer not being able to go to sleepover, but you've gone to a lot of sleepovers. If we look back over the years, you and Paige have lived close to each other for almost all of your lives, and you've had so many sleepovers, and just missing out on one, it's not that big of a deal.
Isn't he so great? Okay, so it's kind of like that. That's called minimizing, where you're saying, look, you're going to be fine. Don't be so upset about it. Obviously, that's not going to be a big help to her. She's not going to receive it at that moment. Let's look at another take on dad handling this.
I think you're overreacting.
I'm not overreacting.
You know what? It seems like you're having
This
a 10 reaction to the two situations.
Why you're doing
You
this?
are absolutely overreacting. It's just a simple sleepover.
Why are you doing that?
I think you're overreacting
I'm
and
not.
getting really emotional.
I'm not overreacting.
Listen.
Oh my goodness. Now, there are those times when you really might think your child is overreacting, right? Or whatever it is, that the issue is not as big as they're making it, but to them, that issue is big, especially when their primitive brain is activated. It is a big issue to them. And I love this little quote, being there in the broken toy moments gives you a ticket to the broken heart moments later in life. It's amazing how good it feels to feel that connection with your child when you took their small issue seriously. Pretty special. I want to share with you, this dad finally runs out of ideas of how he's going to try and fix it. And this is a great example.
Hey, babe.
Hi.
What's going on?
Well, Paige is having a sleepover and she's inviting everyone to her house except me. And she didn't even sit by me at lunch.
You didn't sit by Paige at lunch today? You always sit by Paige at lunch.
I know, it's so weird. She's just been so distant lately. I thought we really connected, like talking a lot and doing homework together and figuring things out. I guess not. It's just been different.
Sorry. That's really surprising. It seemed like last week you guys were getting along great. It frustrates me. I mean, Paige has been over at our house how many times? Does it make you worried that she's going to continue to be like this?
Yeah, and I don't want to lose her. And I don't want to lose my other friends either.
Are they being distant as well?
Well, I mean, Paige kind of like has a big impact on like the other groups. So I feel like if Paige kind of stops talking to me, then they do.
Is that frustrating?
Yeah, it's really frustrating. I don't know why she has such a big impact on them.
And they're going to be all together this weekend?
Yeah, and they're gonna take pictures.
Then they're going to post them to Instagram and social media, and everybody else will see the pictures and see that you weren't there, tagged in them, and everybody will know you were left out. Does that feel like it could be embarrassing?
It's really embarrassing. I don't want people to think that I'm kicked out of the group.
I'm so sorry, honey. I hate that feeling of being embarrassed. Will you let me know if there's anything I can do to help? Okay.
I love that little clip. I wish I could ask each of you right now to think of what did you notice about what that dad did. Um, that was pretty powerful. He really got it right, didn't he? So I'll just share some of the things that stood out to me. I love that he immediately had a radar for her unhappiness when she came into the room. He didn't have to wait for her to say something. He's like, "Hey, what's up?" And he had no distractions. He was listening to her. He immediately was on her side. There's a quote, I don't know exactly the quote, but a quote from Mark Twain that says, anybody will be on your side when you're right, but it's somebody who will be on your team when maybe you're not right or you're wrong. Not that she was wrong in this situation, but she really got the sense that her dad was on her team. And the way he put himself in her shoes and said, you must feel frustrated or you must feel worried. It takes a little bit of patience to allow yourself to go where they might be feeling. That is not easy, but what a gift that is to give to your child. Even if you're wrong, they get the sense that you care and that you're listening. And then I love that moment in the little video where he just sits back and he says, let me know how I can help you. That's hard to do. I'm one of those people who just wants to fix it. I'm always offering a solution. Well, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try this? And that's courageous of that dad to say, I trust that you can sort this out and you let me know. That's pretty powerful. I think that's empowering for the child to know that her dad trusts her, to sort it through and that he's there for her. Anyway, I think that's an awesome example. I wanted to ask you to just think for a minute about something that perhaps one of your children might be going through at this moment. Childhood and teenage life is pretty tumultuous, and likely your child is going through something, right? So even if they don't come and talk to you about it, even if they don't want or haven't asked for your advice about it, can you open that door to say, hey, I'm here for you? So, recently I had a son that went through a painful breakup and his heart was broken. And I think learning about these strategies of communicating and building that bond have been really meaningful to me through this experience. I knew when he was upset that I could say, maybe she's not the right one for you anyway, or yeah, she is really young or whatever I could say, but it was not the time, right? It was not the time. It was just the time to be with them. And I noticed that he's 22 years old now, so he's not a little child, but he came into my room and sat on the bed. And I said, is it okay if I just sit with you? And we just sat for a long time. And a few minutes later, we shared something. A few minutes later, we shared something. We laughed, and it was a great experience. I wanted to suggest that perhaps you have a child that may be going through something rough, and even if they haven't come to you with a concern, you can let them know that you're there for them. You can ask them how they're feeling. You can see if they're still kind of in a primitive brain phase or if they're in that cooling off phase and they'd like to talk about it. Those opportunities are things that you don't want to pass you by and can really be a way of connecting with your child. We just have a few minutes left, and I'm going to share one story that is not very positive about me, but I learned a lot from it. So I'm calling this story the parable of the prom dress. I'm guessing that some of you out there are smiling because you probably have lived the same parable of the prom dress. So um, long story short, my daughter's going to prom. Very excited about it. She wants to get a dress. So I did what any good parent would do, right? I said, here's the amount of money you can spend on a prom dress. And by the way, here are the here's the criteria for a dress that I will pay for. This is the part of the body that it will cover. This is so I had some rules about what the rules that the prom dress had to fit into. So she was not terribly happy about my rules, and so she ordered some dresses online. She ordered 4 different dresses, and I thought I was being very generous to allow her to order that many dresses and return the ones that she didn't want. So it's 2 days before prom. She gets the dresses. She's tried to order dresses that she thinks will meet my criteria, not because she loved them, right? So she starts trying on these dresses, and with each dress, she gets more and more upset. And by the time she gets to the 4th dress, and she just says, I feel hideous. I feel so ugly. And she runs out of the room and runs up to her room. And I had said to her before she disappeared from the room, I said, you know what? You picked out these dresses. There's not enough time. You just have to make the best of it. Choose the best one. We don't have time for anything else. And of course, she burst into tears. That was not the very empathetic response that she was hoping for. She runs upstairs, and there I am in the kitchen. Well, fortunately for me and for my daughter-in-law was there. My daughter-in-law was very courageous to say this to her mother-in-law. And she said, Deanna, try to remember what it feels like to be 17 years old. Try really hard to remember what it's like to go to your first prom. Try so hard to remember what it feels like to just want to feel pretty. It kind of took me by surprise that she was this bold. And she said, Deanna, don't you get it? It's not about the dress. Her words kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I realized she was right. She was right. I was risking our relationship for a dress. And so when my daughter came down the stairs again, I said to her, you know what? I have 5 boys, and then I have you. You're the only one, you're the only daughter I have, and you're my guinea pig, and I'm so sorry I messed up. I totally messed up because I do remember what it feels like to want to be so pretty when you go to prom. I do know how you feel. And I said, you know what? We've got 2 days. Let's go shopping. And I want you to know that I don't care about the criterion anymore. I want you to get something you feel beautiful in. I don't want you to worry about anything else. Let's go shopping. And so, of course, the next day we did go shopping, and miraculously, we found the world's most beautiful dress that she loved. And I was very happy with. And I was interested that when we did that, and when I had taken away all of the criterion for what the prom dress had to be, she herself was looking for things that she knew would meet the criterion I had asked for, without me demanding them, without me insisting, without me punishing. And it was a real lesson to me that even if we've messed up in the past, it's never too late. Andrea Davis said this last week. It's never too late to work on improving your relationship. It's never too late. I'm glad that my daughter-in-law had enough courage to say something to me and to kind of snap me back into things that I already knew and was not paying attention to. So I know we're out of time. I know we haven't been able to address everything that we wanted to talk about, but I just wanted, let me screen share one more time and share some resources with you. That's not the one I want to share. Right here. Okay, several of the things that I shared today are from 2 different parenting apps that I absolutely love. The first one is Raise, and you can see there's a code right there if you want to take a picture of that. This is a digital parenting app that helps you really strengthen your relationship with your kids. It helps with all kinds of digital issues, giving you prompts that you can do. Screen time balance, navigating inappropriate content, dealing with cyberbullying and predators. So super helpful for helping navigate digital issues. And another one that I just love is this app called In Love While Parenting. There's another app that is exactly the same, except it's called The Happy Child. It's the same thing, except one has that there's a couple and the other is if you're doing it on your own. But a lot of the videos that I shared today are from this app and super helpful to really give you a great idea of just things that you can try and everyday solutions for building your relationship. The last thing I wanted to share is that many of the things that I shared come from one of these Power Up for Families conversation guides, and you're welcome to check those out if you'd like to learn a little bit more or have some further conversations with your family. So I am so grateful for your time and happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Wow, thank you so much, Deanna. I am so grateful for you and for what you have taught us today. And I just have to say to all of those watching that Deanna shared some parenting weaknesses that she sees in herself, but I have seen Deanna with her family. I've seen her practicing exactly what she preached to us today, and she is truly an inspiration, someone who just is constantly trying. And I think that's what makes a great parent. So let's get to some questions. Let's see. Says, my 10-year-old daughter is very defiant to us, her parents. She seems to reserve this attitude for us and us only. She deflects any responsibility and claims to be innocent while being disrespectful and breaking the rules. We try to talk with her and end up disciplining her, usually time in a corner or losing screens for a day. She is like a rock of denial. How do we try and connect with her?
Wow. A rock of denial. That's rough. Wow. First of all, I want to say you're amazing. You're amazing. Parenthood is hard. It is really hard. And I wish I knew your daughter or your family to be able to offer better advice. But one thing that I can say from I'm just going to throw out a couple of thoughts. And actually, Brittany, you may have some good responses to this as well. But I think if you can separate what they are doing from who they are, which is hard to do, but she's not a bad person. She's not a belligerent, terrible, defiant person. She is going through a rough time for some reason. So I think if you can find any positive thing that you can share, as much as you can focus on something positive, I think you have to reinforce the rules. There's no question. You still have to reinforce the rules and you have to follow through with consequences. I think if you can make them non-judgmental, it's just more matter of fact that this is what we agreed upon. I'm not sure if you were to ask her, does she have any input into the consequences or not? I don't know if that would work or not if you allowed her to help establish, as part of a family, these are the rules that we have to have for our family to function. So what do you think would be a reasonable consequence if these things are broken? I don't know if that might help to involve her in that process. Another thing too, that like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, that you don't have to control her, you have to control yourself. So trying to keep anger out of it. I think a lot of times when a child is a little bit rebellious, or they might, reply sassy, it's really easy to escalate quickly. And so if you can keep yourself calm, um, then that will help a lot. I have one other little thought, and that is I read such a fantastic article recently about anytime you notice that your child expresses even the slightest interest in something positive, like saying, "Oh, I wish I knew how to paint," or "I've always wanted to go ride a horse." Just snatch on that right away. Just jump on it and use that as an impetus to have a shared good experience with your child. Whatever that thing is, of like, "Oh, I was hoping to invite so and so over to our birthday," or whatever. Like, if in those moments, see if you can snatch onto that little hopeful, good um, thought that they brought up, and see if you can create a shared activity around that idea. Um, I'm going to keep thinking about that, and I'll report back to Brittany. So if I have some more ideas, check back with Brittany, and I'll see if I can share any. And I'm sure some of you listening may have good ideas, and I'd love for you to put it in the chat. Maybe Brittany can share that. Brittany, anything you think should be shared about that? That's a toughie. That's really
That
hard.
is, yeah, that is a tough one. And I love everything you said. I love especially what you said about holding on to who she is, rather than what her choices are, and seeing what you can find that's good about, that you love about her. I would highly recommend the resource book called Hold On to Your Kids by Gordon Neufeld. He talks about how, gives some really great tips about how to strengthen that bond with your kids over the bond that they sometimes have with their peers, and how that parent-child relationship is so much more important than the peer-to-peer relationship. And sometimes defiance creeps in when that peer relationship becomes stronger than the parent relationship. So Hold On to Your Kids is a fantastic book. Okay, let's see. Here's a question. Do you have ideas of questions to ask to start a conversation with my teenager? Even when she is not upset, I freeze about what to talk to her about when she walks in the room. I want to connect, but I'm not sure where to start.
That's good. That's really good. Okay, let me think of some things that I have done in the past. For years and years, I would always do a 1 to 5 scale of like, "Hey, what number do you give today?" Or I'd do a 10 scale. I'd give him 10. And I always had one son who would really think about it and go, "It was a 6 3/8." Go, "Okay." But I would often just say, "Hey, what number do you give today?" And they'd go, "You know what? It was a 4." And then you can kind of go, "Wow, so yesterday was a 7, but today, so what happened? Did something happen at school that just kind of brought you down?" um, that that seemed it seemed to work well for me. I love something that you shared, Brittany, that I learned from you, is that term of compassionate curiosity. um, that's such a powerful term, compassionate curiosity. um, to just ask them, "Hey, what was the best part of your day?" Or "Tell me how your friends are doing." I do that a lot. "Tell me how so and so's doing." I think when you're interested in their friends, that's a big deal to kids, because their peers are so important to them. So I ask questions about their friends, or I'll say, "How do you feel like this year is as compared to last year?" Or "Who's your favorite teacher?" Or "Why do you love this teacher?" Or "What's the hardest part of your day for you?" Or "What part of the day do you look forward to the most?" I think it really doesn't matter what question you ask, as long as it's sincere and it's something that they are interested in. So I don't know if any of those were helpful. Hope so.
I think so. Thank you. Okay, I have someone who is asking for you to show the Power Up screen again. They want to see those resources.
Oh,
Can you do
yes.
that? And while you're pulling that up, another attendee asked about the apps. Do they cost money? Says, I work with low income families often, and it could be a barrier.
They are free. Those are free apps. Yeah, and they're fantastic. They're so helpful. And I love in the Raise app that you actually kind of set up a profile, and it'll walk you through kind of taking a little quiz, so that you can see, where am I in these things, and what areas maybe could use a little bit more work, and super helpful. I think it really just takes you by the hand. Here's the screen for Power Up. These are just it's almost like a mini magazine, and it has, each of these has a different topic: understanding choices, being kind online, safe online, turning it off. And inside of each one, there's stories with discussion questions. There's let's talk, let's practice, let's plan, and let's play. So really you can take whatever part of it works for you, and they're written for early elementary up through high school. So there's things in there for whatever ages your children may be.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, have another question here. Is there any age where we should switch teaching / modeling problem solving to trusting them to solve problems on their own?
That's such a good question. I think for me, it kind of happens as our kids get older and you realize you can't make these decisions for them anymore. You know, like when they're young, you can make decisions for them. You can say, no, you're not going to play at this friend's house, or no, you're not going to wear that, or yes, you're going to do your homework, or no, you're not going to stay up. But when they get a little bit older, I would say as they get into I think it's kind of a natural progression. I think as they get into junior high ages, they feel like they're independent. They feel like they want to solve it themselves, but they really need the guidance a lot. High schoolers do too. But I feel like maybe in that age of junior high, high school, by high school, I feel like you kind of have to trust them to sort it through, not necessarily to sort it through by themselves, but that you're going to allow them, you're not just going to dictate what they do anymore. They're going to resist it. They're not going to receive it well. They want independence. But I would think sometimes if you ask them, how can I help you? How can I help? I've even had this issue with my kids on their devices, you know. So when they're little, we have filters, they're blocked, right? Things are blocked. Then as they got older, I moved to monitoring software. And so they could go wherever they wanted to, but they knew I would see it. It was kind of an intermediate step, and they knew that it was there. And it was just, and I said, I'm not trying to catch you doing something bad. I'm trying to help you to have one more level of strength to resist something that might be harmful to you, because you know your mom's going to see it, right? Um, and then as they get older, my kids, I would just say, how can I best help you? My kids that are in high school and college, it's like, how can I best help you? I've had kids say, you know what? It's not the browser that's the problem, it's the apps. So will you help me by, you know, doing the parental controls and blocking new apps or things like that? And I think that level of trust where whatever they tell you, you're not going to freak out about it. I think they have to absolutely know how you're going to respond so that they feel safe talking to you about anything. But I think it's kind of that natural progression. I don't think it means that they don't need your guidance. They absolutely do. And one of the hardest things is letting them make a mistake. That's really hard. It's really hard. But I think it's sometimes the greatest learner, and if the greatest teacher. And if it's not something that is going to endanger them or someone else, and they make a decision that you may not agree with, but it's not going to endanger them, then you can let it happen. Yeah, such a good question. These are all good questions.
Yes, and we have so many. We're not going to get to all of them, unfortunately, but I do want to share just a little bit of feedback. Someone said, those last words of wisdom hit home. It's never too late. With 3 daughters who already went through prom dress shopping, I could very much relate to the prom parable. And then someone said that they love your transparent way of teaching with your own experiences, foibles and all. Here's one question I'd like to maybe for our last question, and then any questions we didn't get to, we'll be sending you a follow-up survey in an email with the recording after this. And so if you can ask questions in that as well, and Deanna, we'll get those to Deanna and then she can respond to those. But this last question says, trying to teach how important honesty is to our 14-year-old daughter. She's lied a few times about important things. How do we stress this with relevant discipline without seeming like we're holding on to the issue for too long?
These are such good questions. The first thought that came to my mind is to share a time, if you can think of one, where you were not honest. If you can share a time and say, you know what, like I've said to my kids, one of my best lessons in teaching them not to steal was telling them about the time that I stole the candy bar from the store and how I felt about it and the commitment that I made afterwards. I think if you share with them and say, you know what, I understand telling a lie because this experience happened to me, but we have to be able to trust each other. This has to be, and you might ask them to, is there some reason why you feel you need to lie to us? Are you worried that that you're going to get punished for it? Are you worried that we're not going to understand? I think backing up and instead of just getting angry about the lie, if you can back up just a little bit and say, help me understand. I think those are magic words. Help me understand why you would want to lie to us. Because if it's because of the way I'm responding, that's something that I can change, right? But I think letting them know that you will always be honest with them. That's something that I've always told my kids too, is, you know what? I will never, ever lie to you. Never, ever. You can trust me that I will never lie to you. And I need to ask you, will you not lie to me? Let's trust each other that much, that we will tell each other the truth. And that means that sometimes we're going to share things that are hard and we're going to share things that don't make each other happy, but that's okay. We're being honest about it. And that is our commitment to each other. And then I don't know if you can possibly let them know in advance, like, tell me when you get home from, hanging out with your friends or whatever the issue might be. Tell me if your homework is in, and say, I'm trusting you because we're honest with each other, right? I'm trusting you, and reminding them, and just over and over, really focus on the times when they do tell you the truth and that you're so grateful to them, makes you so happy. I wish I knew better how to answer that, but those are my first thoughts.
I think that's great. I think you've done an excellent job. Thank you so much, Deanna. I so appreciate it. I know we all appreciate what you've shared with us today. So we are all out of time. Unfortunately, I'd love to just keep sitting here learning from Deanna, but next week you can join us again, and we're going to have another great conversation. We're going to dive into a pretty heavy but essential conversation with Dawn Hawkins about addressing the sexual exploitation that our children are exposed to online. Dawn is the CEO of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, and she's another gifted speaker. And we look forward to hearing from her next week. Thank you so much. And invite a friend to join us. Go to mediasafety.org to sign up, encourage them to sign up. And like I said before, if you or a friend is not able to watch live, we'll contact you as soon as the recordings are available. So thank you so much. Thank you, Deanna. You're amazing.